Let's remember we have the spiritual arsenal. Let's remind ourselves of it and let's use it. Thanking God that they somehow got out one more captive, right? Since the beginning of this ordeal, for inexplicable reasons, 4 got released from Hamas. And somehow, we don't know how, the army's not telling me or any of the rest of us, but somehow they got one soldier out, which was unbelievable, especially because of all the captives that they are most determined to hang on to the bitter end. It's the soldiers. And they got this one soldier out, and God willing, they're going to get out. I would say another 239, but I keep seeing the numbers going up. There were a lot of spiritual things that went behind this soldier's release. I want to share them to thank God for the miracles, and because to remind us that this is where it's at. The mother of this girl soldier, she works for the city of Kiryat Gat, where they live. It's a city in Israel. And a Chabad neighbor of hers, Lubavitcher, wrote to the Lubavitcher Rebbe on her behalf for her daughter's release. And the letter said something very, very positive that the woman sort of said, in essence, was saying, there's going to be like the resurrection of the dead. To get a soldier out of Hamas is like the resurrection of the dead. And this mother, the mother of the soldier, said, this is it. My daughter's getting out. She shared it with her friends. She shared it with her relatives. She shared it with her co-workers. And when that soldier got out, the spokesperson for the city of Kiryat Gat said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe kept his promise. There was the resurrection of the dead. Unbelievable. That's what it was, like the resurrection of the dead. There was so many spiritual things they did. And they took a lot of videos of what they were doing. So the whole world has been watching it. The girl got out Sunday night. The Thursday before she got out, the mother separated challah. It's one of the 3 commandments given to women, is to separate the challah, to take off a piece, to give it to God. You burn it, you destroy it in some fashion with a blessing, with a prayer. And she's praying as she's separating this challah. She's praying for the release of her daughter. So powerfully. And at the same time saying, God, I love you. And praying for the release of her daughter. That was a Thursday night before. Also, before, there was a procession of a Torah scroll. A new Torah scroll was being dedicated somewhere in this area in Kiryat Gat. And the procession stopped outside the apartment building of her parents. And they took the Torah and they brought it into her bedroom. Like saying, God, here's your holiest thing. Here's a Torah scroll. We need our daughter back. They also changed the mezuzah in her bedroom. Thank God I was able to connect with 2 different people in Israel that are going around separately. They're going around to any houses of hostages. Of course, many of the hostages, their houses were destroyed or they're in areas that civilians can't get to. But the hostages from the festival, from the soldiers, they're going to their homes to check their mezuzahs, to put up mezuzahs. I was very grateful. I was able to support both of these men doing this enormous work because mezuzahs create protection. They changed the mezuzah in her bedroom. And I heard that it's her uncle who was interviewed on Israeli television. He's not religious, and his children are. And the Shabbos, he said, okay, for his niece's sake, he's going to keep the Shabbos. So he went to his religious children for the Shabbos, and he kept the entire Shabbos to get his niece out. And when he was in synagogue on Shabbos, and they called him up to the Torah. 8 people that are called up for the Torah portion over a regular Shabbos. And after he was called up, he made a special blessing for her, and he committed. He said, God, if you get her out, I commit to keeping your Shabbos. He said this Saturday and Sunday night, a friend called him and said, I think your niece got out. And he's thinking, what? Like it was impossible. And then it was her. And he said, just her. I didn't mean only her. Like he felt almost like, oh my gosh, I said get her out. So you got her out and no one else. But he said he's keeping his word. It was very interesting. He was being interviewed on secular Israeli television. So he's being interviewed by a completely secular news host with, bald head, no head covering, earrings on. And he's saying to the host, I know it's going to be really hard to keep this Shabbos, but I made this commitment to God for my niece and I'm going to keep it. And the host, who's obviously completely secular, he says, no, don't worry. It won't be hard. It'll be easy. And at the end of the interview, the host said, I'm breaking protocol. And he went over and he kissed him. It was just amazing feeling just the love and the emotion this complete stranger had for this complete stranger, just in this shared kinship of this resurrection of the dead. It was amazing watching the whole city rejoicing. You saw videos. Everyone in the city was out singing and dancing and singing. And you can see these are complete strangers, all different strands of Judaism, and they're all dancing together with such boundless joy. We're one. This is our daughter. This is our sister. It was also amazing to see the religious awakening when, again, secular Israeli television, the newscaster is announcing this. He says, again, he's secular, bareheaded. He asked someone else on the set for a yarmulke to cover his head, and then he makes a blessing for God for freeing the captives. This was his response. I don't think this was scripted. If it was scripted, he'd have yarmulke on it. It was just such a sense of like love, unity, and religious awakening. There's an amazing clip from a Knesset member. The Knesset is the Israeli parliament. And this was not a religious Knesset member. There was not a religious person in the Israeli parliament. There's a secular person in the parliament. And they're discussing, they're in the parliament, they're proposing a law to compensate, to help the families of the hospital. And this woman, this member of the parliament, the clip is in Hebrew, obviously she's speaking in Hebrew, but I didn't look at it, but I saw they actually have it. Someone put on English subtitles. It's just so amazing. This parliament member speaking at length about the mother of the soldier that was released. And she's commenting on the video clip of the mother praying when she separated the challah the Thursday before her daughter got released, and she's praying to God. And what moved this parliament member so much is that here she is praying and praying and pouring out her heart to God to save her daughter from Hamas. And within the word, she says, God, I love you. And this parliament member went on and on about the power of that belief, the high level about the belief that no matter what's going on, you still believe in God and love God so much that just almost without even thinking about it, as you're pleading and begging and demanding from God, it's just automatic. You're saying, God, I love you and do this. Not like, I love you, but I need you to do this. It was beautiful what she said. And it'd be beautiful if I said it, if a rabbi said it, if a religious speaker said it. This was said in the Israeli parliament by a member of the parliament, what we would call secular member of the parliament, marveling and in awe of this level of belief. So it is just really unbelievable, the unity, brotherhood, love, and spirit of God that's being awakened all over the world. And that's the power. So when we look and we see what's happening and in the human arena, it's like, of course, it's the moral fight and the right fight and the good fight, but it still seems like the impossible fight. And it's like, no. Had a few people, saying, yeah, but, and it's like, there's God. We're not going to worry and limit ourselves to the limits of world. There's God. And it's all going to work out in the best way possible. And of course, at the same time, it's very tragic when we see our children, our brothers, our sons getting killed. And there are definitely every night soldiers getting killed, even though the number is far less than what should be expected in such a horrific guerrilla warfare where they have 500 kilometers of tunnels built 80 meters deep in the ground that they run into and then run out of. Every single person that dies in this fashion, every single soldier that dies to protect the land of Israel, to protect the Jewish people, is called kadosh, someone who's holy, someone who's sacred. Every single person that dies sanctifying God's name dies for no reason but that they're a Jew. All 1,400 of the people that were massacred in the most cruel, brutal, horrific ways on October 7th, they're all kadosh. They're all sacred. All of them, says his son is considered, someone dies because they're a Jew, if someone dies defending Jews, if someone dies defending Israel, we're told they go straight up, skipping any need for any cleansing, because such a death was already purified them of anything that happened during their whole life. So obviously, when you hear the news, both what's happening in Israel and what's happening in America, it can be sometimes very difficult. So I wanted to just point out a few practical things to focus on as tools, not to get pulled down into the deep, deep rabbit holes that are underfoot. So my first piece of advice is try not to read the news or watch the news, or stick to news stations that you know are going to be more positive, whatever, Fox or whatever ones that you found are more positive, different ones in Israel. It's just good for your sanity, It's good for your inner equilibrium and balance, not to subject yourself to a lot of toxic writings and videos. Much more important than that. Of course, many, many times we've spoken about the unity of God, that it's all God, it's only God, there is only God, there is nothing but God. And things can feel sometimes very overwhelming. And when you recenter and you realign and you say, this is God's world, everything is exactly God. Even evil people making evil choices is part of God's plan. And you repeat that to yourself, and you repeat that to yourself, and you repeat that to yourself until you feel safe and centered and confident. Now, obviously, we've discussed that tool many times in this class for various different reasons. And obviously, it's something we use in our life. But also here, when you're in a situation where the most pro-Jewish people, pro-Israel person is going to say, but still, like in the end, what's going to be? Even if still, well, whatever. I don't even want to say words that are seemingly negative, seemingly don't foresee a happy ending. And it's like, guess what? There's a God. And this is all part of God's plan. And if this is part of God's plan, he can clean up this mess. He's not limited. We're humans, we're limited to human thoughts, to human conceptions on what could happen. God's not in that box. God's not limited by our limitations. God can do and does everything. And God definitely doesn't follow any of our scripts. So it's his world. Everything that happens, including things that seem to us so painful, it's all his world. It's all part of his plan. Well, why would he make such a plan? Why would he have such a plan that innocent people are suffering like this? If you knew the answer to that, you'd be God. We don't know the answers. We're not God, but we trust him. And we know it's his world. And we know he's good. If it's his world, and if he's good, this is going to have the best ending. Not, well, scraping. No, the best. The only possible ending. Because we know it's his world. Because we trust him. That's what's going to be. So sometimes when you hear and see too much, and the world takes over, and you feel too much the reality of the world, and too little the reality of God, stop and remind yourself, and remind yourself, and remind yourself, until what's real is God's reality. Because when what's real is God's reality, it's good. Something else is, third point, is when we do things to make a spiritual difference, they empower us. We are helping, we are doing, we are making a difference. Because so often it's this feeling of like helplessness, hopelessness. There's this huge evil harming the people of Israel, harming America, taking over so much of the world. And then you feel like, well, what can I do? It's just all this evil. It's all this evil. We have the power. Open up Psalms, say Psalms, then say more Psalms, then say more Psalms. We have the power. We have power. We are not helpless. We are not hopeless. We have the power. We have the real power. I made a small gathering in my house Saturday night just to create and focus on unity. And afterwards I felt, okay, God, there'll be a difference in the world now because of this. There's a few people. There's a small gathering. It doesn't make a difference. There'll be a difference in the world because more goodness was created, more godliness was created. And of course, we do things physically to help. Like Natalie showed us all those pictures of what she and her friends did today. If it's buying things for the soldiers, there's hundreds of thousands of displaced people. 250,000 displaced people that can't go back to their homes. Soldiers, women whose husbands are in the army. There's families that are suffering with hostages, suffering with losses. There's so many people. There's so much need. And when you do that, you're saying, okay, I'm making a difference. I'm not just in my heart feeling it. I'm practically doing it. I'm feeling it in my pocket as I donate to any of the myriad of causes, Zaka, that are still going out every day to identify bodies, to give people burials, to figure out who these people are when all you see is burnt remains, decapacitated. Horrible stuff they're seeing. Horrible. One man that was working from October 7th, 16 days straight, and he had a heart attack. It was just horrible stuff. They said in 4 days, they used up like 5 years worth of equipment. But we can help. We can help spiritually by our psalms, by our Torah study, by our charity. And we help physically by buying things, by supporting so many worthy organizations, doing so much good. Like Noahide did. That was great. That was spiritual, physical help. And then, you're doing something. You're making a difference. And celebrate that there is a revival of love, of unity, and a renewed love for God in many people throughout the world. And that's worth celebrating. And that's worth focusing on. And that's worth saying, God, look what's happening in the world. This should be enough. We shouldn't need to say one more psalm, though we do. We shouldn't need to give any more charity, though we do. Look at so many people in the world remembering you, turning to you. That should be enough. Those are 5 tools I'm suggesting to give strength and confidence. Very careful with what you allow yourself to watch and read. Be very careful. Remembering it's all God, only God, and whatever we see, even if stuff we don't like, it's part of God's plan. He runs the world. There's no competition to him. People can make choices, but God runs the world. Doing things spiritually to help, doing things physically to help. Both of those are tremendous strengths we have. We can make a difference. And we do make a difference. Every time you say another song, you're making a difference. And anything else you can do, you're making a difference. And celebrating and reminding God of people in the world that are turning to him, remembering him, supporting the Jewish people, his children. That's also happening. And that's also a tremendous strength. That's like, okay, it's going to be good. Look what's going on in the world. I wanted to, again, I know we do this every week, but I think it's so important to see how week by week in the Torah portion, we're just seeing living with the times just keeps matching up to the reality. And like every person sees it. Like, I mean, meaning like I see it, but I see someone else, I see the same thing, someone else see the same thing. It's just there. It's just that obvious. You just read the text. You don't need to be any great scholar. It's just in your face how these Torah portions are expressing exactly the energy of this time. Why is that so valuable? Why do we keep returning to this idea? Because Torah creates reality. So we look at the Torah portion and we see these concepts. It's like, okay, God, this is exactly what's supposed to be happening now. This is your Torah portion. So on October 7th, which was that first Torah portion of Bereshit of Genesis, the very opening words of Rashi, as we said, is, why are we going into creation? Torah is about telling us the laws. No, because there'll come a time when the world will say you're robbers, that you took the land of Israel. We'll say, no, we're not. Look in the Torah. Genesis, God created the world. It's his world. God gave this land to us, and that's why it's ours. We're not robbers. They're not colonizers. This is our land. That was the first portion. That was the first week. The next week was Noah, the flood. And what are we told was in the world? That therefore the world needs to be washed away. Hamas, violence. As we said, Rashi said robbery. Uncle said it's kidnappers. It's both. Got to wash away the Hamas. We got to obliterate the Hamas. That was next week, Noah. The next week, Lech Lecha, is all about God promising Abraham, this is your land. This is a land for your children, for the Jewish people forever. Walk the land, conquer it. And what else happened in that Parsha? His nephew was taken hostage. And what did Abraham do when his nephew was taken hostage? He fought. He overcame 4 powerful kings, violent kings, mighty kings, to rescue the hostages, including his nephew. What was last week? Vayera. What happened in Vayera? Amazing things that just resonate. What's supposed to happen now? God destroying the evil. Sodom and Amorah. Sodom and 3 other cities that were evil. God rained down fire and sulfur and destroyed the evil. And Sarah was taken captive. She was a hostage. And through God's miracles, she was released with honor. So we have God destroying the evil, Sodom, Amorah, and 2 other cities. Sarah, the hostage, being miraculously freed. And we also have Sarah saying, kick out Ishmael. Abraham's first child, Ishmael, is the father of the Arab nations. And he was trying to kill Yitzchak, Isaac. Makes sense. For the first 14 years of his life, he was Abraham's only child. He thought he was his heir. And suddenly Yitzchak is born, and we're like told, no. This kid's Abraham's real child. This is his Jewish child. This is his real child. He's like, what? I don't want this usurper to the throne around. I'll kill him. I'll get rid of him. I want to be the only child. He was trying to murder Isaac, Yitzchak. And Sarah said to Abraham, you've got to drive him out. He has no place with Yitzchak. He has no place with Isaac. He's going to kill him. And Abraham didn't know what to do. I mean, Ishmael is his son. Is Sarah right? Is Sarah not right? Is there another way to do it? And God tells Abraham, listen to Sarah. What she's telling you, she's telling you with prophetic spirit. Whatever she says, you have to listen to her. This is what you have to do. Send him away. Drive him out. Not sending him away with honor and dignity. Abraham was very wealthy. You're not sending him away with riches. Drive him away. He cannot be with Yitzchak. He can't be with Isaac. He can't be with the Jew. No, he's going to try to murder him. That was this past week's Torah portion, what we read in synagogue yesterday. And this week is the portion of Chayei Sarah, where I saw in the beginning and in the end, as I looked through the Torah portion today, just again, I felt it was so living with the times. So the beginning of this week's Torah portion, Sarah passed away, and Abraham purchases Hebron for a very high price. And the person who owned this land said, oh, we're such good friends, I'll give it to you for free. And Abraham's like, don't give me any free gifts. You're going to give me a free gift today. Tomorrow we're going to dispute whose ownership. I don't want any disputes on the ownership of this land. I'm buying this land. This is the eternal resting place. It was for Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. Don't give me a gift that you're going to take back. I'm buying it with a high price. That was the opening words of this week's Torah portion. Abraham buying forever this place in Israel. And very interesting, we have a rule in Jewish learning and Torah learning that everything follows a conclusion. The last ending thought or word are really encapsulating the whole energy. So if you look in this Torah portion, Chayei Sarah, the final words of the Torah and the final words of Rashi's commentary on the Torah are talking about Ishmael being fallen. Last word is Ishmael is fallen. And Rashi explains that when Abraham was around, Ishmael had some strength. But once he was gone, Ishmael went into a fallen state. Ishmael fell. Torah creates reality. We have to live with the times. We have to live with the Torah portion. And surely the Torah portion is molding reality. And this is our land. And Ishmael has fallen. So I think very important for us to know this is the reality. We want reality. We look in Torah. I also wanted to focus. I know I had a number of things I wanted to do, and Natalie was, how in the world do you do all that in one class? But I wanted to focus on miracles because I was told that not all of you are hearing miracles, and it's much easier to keep up our spirits and our faith and our positivity. And positivity is so important, and trusting God is so important when we do see the miracles. And I'm constantly being told other ones and other ones and other ones and other ones and other ones. But I'm trying to share with you ones I didn't share with you before. So on one of the areas, the settlements in the South, there's a woman. Most of these settlements are not religious. And there was a woman there not religious whose brother had become religious. He became Chabad. And her brother for years was trying to get her to put a mezuzah on her front door. And she kept on making excuses. Maybe she was embarrassed, in her area, like it wasn't what you saw on doorposts. And she always will push it off. I'll do it, whatever. Yeah, today. Actually, I mean tomorrow. No, actually, I mean the next day. That's going for years. Friday, he called her, to wish her, wishes for the Shabbat, for the Sabbath, for the holiday. And very randomly, he asked her, for years. She said, yeah, I'll do it. He had already sent her the mezuzah, and he was with her, guiding her, and she puts it on her doorpost. That was Friday. Saturday, the terrorists came. And they came house after house, and obviously everyone locked their doors, and obviously they smashed open the doors and Everybody was in their bomb shelters, their safe rooms, and they smashed those as well. And they come to her door, which was locked like everyone else's. And they like tried for a few minutes and they left. They just went on to the next house and she wasn't touched. And this is protected her. Another situation, and again, one of these areas which were most of these areas under attack, there were 22 settlements, and the 2 religious ones somehow were spared. Different things happened, but the people were spared. The terrorists never got in. But the 20 other ones were all basically very secular. So on one of these areas, there was a family where the woman started becoming more religious. And so it was a family, a husband, a wife, young children, and young family. And she was kind of more religious. She's living in a totally non-religious area, which is a little difficult on the Sabbath, especially if you have children and your children are keeping Sabbath, but nobody else is keeping Sabbath. It was very difficult. So what they started to do was every Sabbath, every Shabbos, they would go somewhere else. They had a lot of religious family, and they'd go to his family, to her family, every single Shabbos. They did this for 2 years. So they were never there on Shabbos. Now comes Shabbos, October 7th, and they were actually there. She's very pregnant, and it was just too hard. Forget it. We'll stay home for one Shabbos. Not only were they there, but they actually had guests. So they're never on this settlement on Shabbos, but on October 7th, they were home with guests for the Shabbos, for the holiday. And they heard what was going on. And like everyone else, they locked themselves, they locked the doors, and they locked themselves in their bomb shelter. And they heard, the Arabs going from house to house, murdering and taking hostages and burning and doing horrific, barbaric things to the people. And they just see the Arabs walk right by their house. They don't even try the door. They just walk right by. And then they go back and they're rampaging and plundering and murdering and torturing. And they keep going on our street, doing all the horrific things. And they don't once even come to them. Then, of course, eventually the army came in and the terrorists were driven away. And they were like, what was going on? They literally didn't come to their door. Well, they found on the terrorists that were killed, they had lists. Unfortunately, the Arab workers that they were so nice and generous to, that they gave gifts to and always candies for their children, the Arab workers that would come to that settlement detailed for each and every house who was there, the ages, who you should murder, who you should take hostage, how many children, the ages of the children. Everything was written down, house by house. The whole settlement was mapped out. And on their house, it was written, never home Saturday. So the Arabs knew, don't waste your minutes walking into that house. There's nobody ever there on Saturday. And that's protected the family and the people, the guests with the family. Nobody's home. The Arabs didn't even try. Obviously, their keeping Shabbos protected them, saved them, and save their guests. It's very painful, even when you're saying these amazing things of people that were saved, because, of course, so many people were not. And so many people suffered in such horrific ways. But at the same time, we want to thank God for every spark of light we see, for every piece of goodness we see, for every piece of salvation we see. And as we thank God and as we focus on the good, it's like God says, okay, you're acknowledging me. You're realizing I'm involved. You're seeing my salvation. We can open up the gates for more. So as we see and as we acknowledge and as we thank God, more and more and more should shower down. Torah creates reality. And as we're studying the laws, not that I think anyone here is specifically tempted in this direction, but as we're studying the laws, that also creates a spiritual reality, a spiritual strength. So of course we know that murder is one of the Noahide laws. It's forbidden for any human being to murder, let alone everything else that happened. But we're just starting with the basics of murder. So any human is forbidden to murder, forbidden bloodshed. Obviously, it's punishable by the death penalty. God commanded Noah that man can never, ever take the blood of man. It says, I will demand the soul of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man by man, the man sheds the blood of man, his blood shall be shed. From the image of God, he made man. God is saying, no human can take the life of a human. And if one does, God said, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to get involved. Because no person has the right to shed another person's blood. Now, this verse has many, many details. If we break it down, besides the overarching meaning, as I just said, again, as you saw, there seem to be a lot of repetitive phrases in this verse prohibiting murder. Sages break down here actually like 6 points in this verse. I'll read the verse again, and then we'll see the 6 prohibitions that are in this biblical verse. But your blood of your souls I will demand. Of every beast I will demand it. But of man for his brother, I will demand the soul of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man, his blood shall be shed. In the image of God, he made man. So the first phrase, your blood of your souls I will demand, is actually a reference. I'm not going to explain why for each one. Just that would take too long just to understand the ideas. For actually someone who commits suicide. Suicide is prohibited. We don't have the right to take our own life. God gave us life. You don't have the right to throw it away. Of every beast will I demand it, is if someone would put a person in front of an animal, that the animal should kill him. I didn't do him. This wolf attacked him. This tiger attacked him. This elephant attacked. Of man for his brother is if someone sends another person to kill. For all of those, it says, I, God, will demand that blood. God's going to punish. Whoever sheds the blood of man is someone who kills actively and deliberately. Whoever sheds the blood of man within man is talking about someone who kills a fetus, as of course, unfortunately, also happened in very barbaric ways. The person within the person. His blood shall be shed is when the court gets involved to give capital punishment. So there's the court and there's God. The court's going to able to enforce the law, it's on the court. If the court cannot or does not, God says, I'm taking over. I'm taking the responsibility for this one. Not allowed to kill, not allowed to torture, abuse, mutilate, violate, burn, any of the other things. Worse and worse and worse that happened. They put together, the army put together a video just from all the body cams that they got, from all the terrorists that were killed, and from all the evidence that is still there. And they showed this video in the Israeli parliament. And I definitely didn't want to see it. And the parliament, like they couldn't handle it. You know, some forced themselves to stay and some ran out of the room. See what happened, what man could do to man. What man can do to man. When man is encouraged to be at his most barbaric energy.
Unbelievable.
Why is God speaking so strongly against the concept of murder? Very simply, God created a world. He wants the world to be inhabited. He wants the world to be settled. He wants the world to be a civil, good, godly place. He didn't create a world for it to be destroyed and desolate. He didn't create the world for emptiness, as the verse says. He did not create it for emptiness. He fashioned it to be inhabited. He didn't create the world that the world should be a dangerous, unsafe place to live in. He didn't create the world that one person should think he has mastery as over others, to be able to take their lives, to be able to injure, to harm people, because that's what the person wants to do. Every person needs to know there's a master and creator of the world who directs the world, who judges the world. A person needs to respect life, needs to respect property, needs to respect the honor of a fellow human being, and know that the authority over human life is only God's. Humans do not have the authority or discretion over other people's lives. The Lubavitcher Rebbe many years ago was coming up very strongly to create a moment of silence in the public schools, that the day in the public schools should start with children being given a moment to connect to God. And there's a moment of silence. You don't tell them what to say. There's, separation of church and state. Let them go home, let them ask their parents what they're supposed to be thinking about. But why is that so important, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said? Because if they don't have this embedded in their day, these children grow up thinking the world is a jungle. They're animals and the world is a jungle. And there's no God, there's no creator, there's no master, there's no one you have to report to. And it's just the biggest bully has the power. So the bigger bully you can be, the more power to you. And they're being warned what would happen to these people. And these are the children that grew up. And then we have, how many school shootings do we have in America of children that have no conception of any power besides a gun, any power besides violence, any power besides brutality? For every human being, the more they have an awareness there's a God, there's a master over this world, the more they honor and respect human life. Well, we just started this, but I felt it was powerful and necessary because, again, Torah creates reality. And as we express the Torah truth, we flesh it and give it power to create, to be the truth, to be the force in the world. So our Psalms and our charity and our Torah study and our trust and our faith and our unity and our love and everything we're doing physically and spiritually. I know there's a lot of heavy fighting going on right now as we are studying. Right now as we're studying, intense fighting is taking place. Brutal fighting. And everything we did tonight should be another wall of protection around these Jewish soldiers, that they be able to do their mission, rescue hostages, destroy evil, and be protected and safe.